Hey, good morning, everyone. We are going to record this today, so we have it for future reference to use. And so if it's okay with everyone, I think I'm going to mute everyone. If you have something to say, please feel free to do. I'll look at the chat comments too, but then we're going to have a portion at the end for questions as well. So feel free to just hold on to them or write them down, and we'll get to them in that question section. So again, good morning, and today we're going to talk about the Iowa Child Care Complaint Hotline and just kind of an overview for Child Care Resource and Referral Parent Specialists. We're holding this because we're going to have a new process with the complaint hotline, and you as parent specialists are going to play a role, which we're grateful for and excited about and think it'll work out really good. I think it's a good connection that we can make with some of these callers that call into the hotline. So with me is, I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Monique Ortiz. I'm a training specialist, and I'm just here to help support Cassie, and we'll get through this together.
And I'm Melissa Jewell, and I'm just here in case there's questions that they can't answer.
Yeah, Monique helps answer the complaint hotline as well, so she knows that world. Okay, so first we just wanted to give a little background about the complaint hotline for those of you that maybe don't know kind of where it came about or what its actual intent is. So the Iowa Child Care Complaint Hotline was a Child Care Development Block Grant, or CCDBG, requirement that was put in place October of last year, so October of 2016. It's a phone line that's answered our normal business hours, which is Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. Right now we have 5 admin staff in our central Remsen office in Region 1 answering that line, but we always make a point to make note that it's not associated with Child Care Resource and Referral. So meaning we answer the hotline, Iowa Child Care Complaint Hotline, this is Cassie. So we don't ever say that we're with Child Care Resource and Referral. If Child Care Resource and Referral somehow gets brought up, let's say that maybe they need parent referrals, we play the card of there's a great resource out there called Child Care Resource and Referral and get them the connection. So we don't ever use the term we as that we're a Child Care Resource and Referral. So we try to make sure that there's a distinct difference between the complaint hotline and Child Care Resource and Referral. So even though we Child Care Resource and Referral staff answer that line, that it's different from that program. And the actual intent of the complaint hotline is to take complaints about businesses or individuals who provide child care services. Then all those complaints are filed with DHS, Department of Human Services, and based on the information that they receive, the department will evaluate if the complaint will be investigated because the provider may be out of compliance with Iowa code. So that was the intent of the phone line, and we noticed shortly after it started that that intent, we're getting some different calls. That wasn't just that they wanted to call in and complain, getting a lot of ones that are asking for like the child care assistance line. We get calls from neighbors that say, I think they see child care in the title and say, well, my neighbor has a child that he's taking care of and I don't think he's doing X, Y, and Z correctly. So kind of more like a child welfare type of questions. And then we were getting a lot of calls that were just, we might not want to file a complaint, we just have a question about child care regulations. And so in the last couple months, we thought about ways to better direct those calls so we weren't getting so many of those ones that weren't the intent of the hotline. And so we came up with a new process that we'll talk about next, but it just seemed like the hotline was turning more into a helpline with trying to answer questions, and we were spending a good deal of time trying to dig out the comms or the rules for DHS to try to help people find answers. So our solution for that was to put in a phone tree for the complaint hotline, and that's going to go into effect hopefully within the next couple weeks by July 1st for sure type of thing. And basically what happens is if an individual calls the complaint line number, which is this 844-786-1296 number, they will hear first an explanation of what the hotline is, that we only take complaints against those child care businesses, emphasizing businesses, so we try to weed out those complaints against that's not dealing actually with a child care program, that the complaints are just submitted to DHS. We're not going to determine if it's actually against regulation. All we do is take down their information and submit that to DHS, and that they're responsible for the investigation of that complaint or that concern. And that information on report files are available online. So we all know that as parent specialists, we refer families to that a lot now on the DHS webpage, that they can view those files. So that's in that initial conversation when somebody calls that number. And then also that the complaint staff are not able to give complaint file updates. We get a few calls. People have called in, placed a complaint, and then they call back weeks or days later asking what the status is, that we don't have that information. So that's the initial kind of wordage. And then we go down and we ask them, so if they are not wanting to file a complaint specifically about a child care business, here's some other options for you. So press 1 for the abuse hotline, and that's if they're calling for a complaint of child endangerment, denial of care, critical care is a big one, emotional or physical abuse. They would press 1 and get transferred directly to that abuse hotline, and then we give them the phone number as well if they want to call it. Press 2 if they have questions about child care assistance, and again, we give them that 866-448-4605 number that we know so well, because we seem to get a lot of calls on the complaint line asking for the child care assistance line. So hopefully that will help weed through those. And then press 3 if you are unsure if you have a reason to file a complaint about a child care provider, or if they're calling with questions about Iowa child care business regulations or guidelines. So that's where that would get transferred to our child care resource and referral 877 number. And that's the 877 number. If you call, it asks for you to press the first, I think, 4 letters in your county, and then it directs you to their specific region from there. So I know in Region 1 it goes out to the parent specialist in that specific region from there. So that's where parent specialists would play a role if they press that 3. And then after that, it talks about, again, if they want to see the status of a complaint that they previously filed, that we don't have access to that they have to go online, and we give the URL to do that. And then we say press 4 if they would like to be connected with a child care complaint intake staff to file an actual complaint. So that's kind of the structure of the calling tree that'll go in place soon. And we're hoping will help weed through some of those calls that really aren't the intent. So you as parent specialists, expectations with those complaint line calls are, again, starting by July 1st, parent specialists are expected to answer calls that originate by calling that complaint hotline, but were either 1, transferred to child care resource and referral by the way of the complaint phone line tree because they were unsure if they wanted to file a complaint or just have child care questions. So that's if they call the number and then push that number 3, and then they would get transferred to you. Otherwise, the complaint line staff might forward to child care resource and referral parent specialists for additional education or referrals, which might occur after a complaint is filed. So what we're saying is us that are taking those complaint calls aren't going to tell them the rules and regulations. We're going to transfer to the parent specialist to elaborate on that. We're just going to take the complaint, file the complaint, and then say if you want additional information, that's what's going to happen. You as parent specialists, the hours will be the same as your normal hours, should be answered during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. And the purpose for you talking to those callers is to purely inform the caller of child care regulations and rules in Iowa. So we really encourage to be able to break out the DHS comms or those rule books for registered homes, licensed centers, and child care homes receiving child care assistance. And it is kind of handy just to be able to read those regulations straight from the rule books. That seems to be the easiest way to get across to people what the actual rules and regulations are. And there may be a possibility to provide child care referrals to the caller. I know I seem to get a lot of calls where the caller is no longer going to that child care, and so that's always a good time to say, well, do you have another child care? And that's where we usually make the connection of, you should call Child Care Resource and Referral. They can get you free referrals. So you might be able to get some referrals that way, or be able to provide referrals to the caller. And lastly, it's important to keep the caller's information they share as confidential as you can, as the situations will be specifically about providers in your area. So child care consultants or anyone else should not be hearing the story's details that the caller tells the specialist. And we're encouraging the parent specialist to talk to their regional director about confidentiality policies that you have in place in your region. It's easy to get those details, and it's sometimes hard. You're just going to remember to keep the details not as detailed. Keep them broad, I guess. So there are a couple things that parent specialists are not expected to do when answering calls that you receive by way of that complaint hotline. You're not expected to listen to the caller's concern or complaint and to determine if it is indeed a valid complaint. That's against Iowa code for providers. It should be placed on the caller to determine if they want to go through with filing a complaint, if they have not done so already, once the parent specialist provides education on their concern. So again, that's what we kind of said. We had some issues with taking we felt like we were almost talking people out of filing a complaint, and that's not our job or our intent. Our job is just to tell them the facts. Here's what the rules and regulations are. You can file a complaint if you feel you'd like to. If they haven't filed a complaint and voiced to you that they'd like to do so after speaking with you, just be able to provide them with that 844-786-1296. Then that's the child care complaint number, or transfer them to that number so they can do so. And again, just want to reiterate that parent specialists are to keep the caller's details confidential. No specific details of the call should be shared with anyone. Anything off of that you guys have to add? Calls they're a little different than the normal parent referral call where they just call in, they're wanting parent referrals. They're a little more emotional because they usually have a concern against a provider. So we know that and sometimes you get angry callers, rarely, but they do exist. And there is going to be a statewide policy for ending those quote-unquote angry calls, or when it's okay to end those angry calls, and that's being developed. But until then, talk to your regional directors with what they feel is an okay time to say, okay, this is not a productive conversation, it needs to be ended. And again, stay tuned for more details about a statewide policy for that. I think that's coming out. So if you don't know the answer, it's totally okay if you don't know the answer. We oftentimes don't. We've learned a lot through the few months that we've answered the complaint line, just because the concerns and the complaints that individuals have are kind of different. They're not your, how many children do they need to have? It's kind of different. So please, if you don't know the answer, tell the caller that you don't know. Take their information, their contact information, and let them know that you'll get back to them once you talk with others and get an answer for them. So at that point, then feel free to reach out to whomever in the CCR in our system. So some of those individuals listed there, the regional director, your coworkers, consultants, nurse consultants, DHS, to help answer the caller's question. And again, remembering not to include specific program details. So don't say, I got a call about the center in Lamar's and this is happening. say, I have a concerned caller that wants to know the policy on this. So again, try to keep the questions broad so others aren't able to determine what program the caller is questioning or concerned about. And then once you have the answer, return the call and inform the caller what was learned. So, and you might, again, at that point, refer them back to the complaint hotline if they want to go forward from there and file a complaint. And so we don't want you to actually transfer, if you don't know the answer, we don't want you to transfer to a nurse consultant that call. We want you to actually just get that caller's information, hang up, you get the answer yourself, and then call the caller back. So you're not transferring. And that way you get knowledgeable too about the answer to those topics. So we tried to list, you hear a lot of different calls on the complaint line. These are just a few that have come up more than once, and sometimes we kind of get tripped up over them because they're different. So one being anything around termination policies, and we often advise to look at the contract signed. We seem to do that a lot with a lot of things to encourage parents and callers to look at what contract they had signed with the provider, and that can usually answer a lot of things. And that they might need to contact their local attorney. So we'll talk about that later, about DHS only has jurisdiction over a certain amount of things, and some of those things they don't have jurisdiction over, so if they want to go into it more, they're going to have to contact an attorney. Biting comes up a lot. Every situation with that seems to be a little different. We usually say providers will often have policies around biting and talk about injury reports that should be filed. Money disputes is a tricky one that's kind of messy, usually around does a parent need to pay type of questions. The parent doesn't think they need to pay and the provider's charging them. Again, a lot of times look at your contract and you might need to contact an attorney is usually the answer that we provide callers with that one. Social media concerns is a big one. Facebook and people posting things on Facebook, either providers posting parent information or pictures of children on Facebook. And we seem to have the common conversation of how information about a child should remain confidential and how written consent is required. Another one is, unfortunately, provider physical and verbal assault against a parent. It's more common than you think, just kind of sad. Yeah, that's one that we just say contact your local law enforcement, usually. Yeah, we're always kind of interested how they get to the complaint line before they, get to call the police. But so these are just a few other ones that kind of come to mind that come up. Illnesses, a lot of time with illnesses is the callers wondering about posting when illnesses are in the center or the home in exclusion policies. So we usually discuss how ill child policy should be in place. Bed bugs, head lice around exclusion policies, another one. And then mice, rodents, cockroaches, all that sort of gross stuff. We usually quote right out of the COM that conditions in home are safe, sanitary, and free of hazards, because that's what DHS usually refers back to when they investigate those issues. Food questions we get sometimes, so serving certain types of foods or drinks that they don't think they should be, sometimes issues around milk, like breast milk and storage. I've gotten a few of those. Foods, I remember one about raisins. They were concerned that they were feeding them raisins, and can they do that, a 2-year-old? So family disputes, there always seems to be a connection to the concern, and usually it's something around family disputes, usually around separated, divorced parents, and around who can pick up children, drop off children. We usually remind the caller that parents are awarded unlimited access to their children during daycare hours unless there's a court order. So we know that rule, but that gets brought up. And a reminder that each call is a little bit different, and each one usually has its own twist or special element where it's maybe not so easy just to answer. And again, a lot of times it's check what you signed in the contract in their policies. Because a lot of times it is in the provider's policies what they're doing, and they just didn't look at it closely when they signed it to begin care. So some calls might start out by saying that they have a question, and then it becomes pretty apparent that the situation might be potential abuse or neglect. If that does happen, just promptly let the caller know that you think this situation needs to be addressed with the abuse line staff. So then provide the phone number and transfer the caller to that 800 line that's answered 24 hours a day. So that 800-362-2178. And obviously, if it's an immediate danger, just obviously refer them to call 911. Again, it's one of those instances of how did you get this number type of thing before that, but obviously just use your common sense there. If a situation occurs that it's not abuse neglect at the time, but just be able to offer them that abuse line number just in case things escalate or they might need it to come. So denial of critical care is another situation that needs to go to the abuse line. That's the one, I guess, that we get more than like obvious physical abuse is the denial of critical care. And we're just advising you to print and store that information about denial of critical care that came from the MCART training to have for reference. And I think that's one Melissa sent out as an attachment for this, the webinar link for today. So have that handy. In some situations, you might be able to educate the caller on what they might be thinking is abuse. For example, child-to-child situations like biting, they would not be considered abuse. But obviously, when in doubt, if you don't know the exact answer, which even in that situation, it's totally okay to send to the abuse line and let them decipher if it's abuse or not. That's not your determination to determine if it's abuse or neglect. So when in doubt, transfer on. And hopefully this slide doesn't scare you. And hopefully with our little calling tree that they will get siphoned out to begin with, that even the complaint line staff won't get, because we get them very rarely through the complaint line right now, but there are a few that get through the cracks type of thing where it's an obvious abuse line. So hopefully they'll listen to that calling tree, and we put that one as number 1. So hopefully they will know. And we specifically mention it doesn't just have to be physical and physical abuse type of thing. It can be that denial of critical care, and we put that in the wording so they would know. Hopefully encourages people to use that option. Okay. And a reminder that each call is a little bit different. Each one usually has its own twist again. And we all know that there's a gray line oftentimes in the comms or the rule book on what is regulations and what is best practice, and then the difference basically between required and recommended. Centers and homes write those policy manuals to follow those state regulations, but we know that a lot of times the policies may be more strict than the state regulations, and that's the discretion of the provider and the program, and they can do so. Complaints about being more strict is not a complaint. Regulations are set as a minimum standard only. So to add to that, DHS only has authority over certain rural areas, like we were talking about before. So again, the phrase contact your local attorney is a common phrase, especially with like money issues that seems to come up all the time. So money issues or termination disputes, DHS wouldn't have jurisdiction over those things. Okay. And lastly, before we kind of get into any questions you do have, if you do have questions over the complaint line process or calls, that sort of thing, please send those to Melissa Jewell here and CC Deb Martins, who's the current parent liaison. The reason why we're asking to do that, we kind of already have a process in place for contacting DHS with complaint line questions and getting that process smoothed out. So we want to do it that way. And then also Melissa will make sure that all the 5 regions get that information then. So make sure that everybody's kept in the loop. So you guys have anything to add at this point?
I think, as I was listening to you talk, I think one of the things that the parent specialist role that they're going to have now is that I think we do a lot of educating the parents on how to talk with the providers about things. You know, I mean, a lot of times I think we're used to that parents are handed a contract from the provider, but I don't think parents really know what to do with that contract. So it's really a lot of educating and getting the parents, you know, the verbiage and the skills and the knowledge about how they can use that contract also to protect them a little bit too. So I think that's a really great use and something new that we really haven't been educating parents about. So it's a good opportunity. That's good.
Yeah. I'll unmute all you ladies too. So do you guys have any questions, concerns about taking those calls?
Everyone, this is Deb. I was wondering, Melissa, you'll announce when that hotline is ready to roll over or ready to go. You'll send out an announcement.
Yeah, yes, we will. After this call, we're going to contact our phone company, and they've known that we're waiting and that we wanted it to be in place by July 1st. But, you know, sometimes phone companies don't do it on your schedule. So we're going to start the process and hope that they have it done by July 1st. But whatever day they actually get it done, we'll contact everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we were just talking about how we weren't able to test out what it's going to look like coming into your phone lines. If it's going to look like it's coming from the complaint line number, that 844-786-1296 number, or if it's going to look different. So you guys would be able to know as parent specialists that it was coming from that way. So we'll have to see once it's up and going.
It'll be my guess that it's going to come in looking like it's coming from that 800 number, the 786 number. So hopefully you'll be able to know all of them that come in if it comes in off that same number. Because that's a dedicated line coming in. It's not like the phone calls on the complaint come in to 3 different lines here at Mitsue. It's one dedicated line. So whenever it gets forwarded, it should be forwarded to the regions from the same number.
Because I think, like, you ladies can probably let me know, those that have caller ID, that I transfer calls to the parent specialist quite a bit, and I think it comes in from looking like it's Rumson, Iowa, or my 786-3489 number. So I think it'll be similar.
Yeah, it comes from Rumson, Iowa, on ours.
You just know. Yeah.
Yep. Well,
I do.
Yeah, for that reason, because with my line.
Any line. Any Rumson line that was forwarded on, yeah.
Melissa, I'd be interested to know how many of the regions have caller ID. Region 3 does not.
So, yeah. So
Region 2, do you have caller ID?
Yeah.
Where's it up? I don't think Laura's on.
Laura's not. Yeah, Laura had training today.
Oh.
Okay.
Loretta, do you have ID? She might not be able to.
Yeah, she says that they're getting audio, but nope. Maybe, but so that might just be when it's up and going. We'll just have to see. Yeah.
She says she does. She typed.
Oh yeah, Region 5 has caller ID.
So I guess, is there any questions about what your expectations are? We kind of went through it kind of fast. Are you okay with what the expectations are that we kind of laid out and what we're not requiring you to do and what should be done?
It's kind of tricky. It's tricky when you're talking with somebody and they want you basically to tell them what to do.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Tell me if this is okay or not. So you just got to remember, just state the facts, and that's what your responsibility is. Yeah, it's not to determine if it's actually a complaint or not, what their situation is.
Because they can get pretty tricky as far as deciphering oh, I don't know, where do I go from here? So
That's why it's nice just to be able to literally read page 32 says this exactly.
Yeah.
That relates to your concern.
Yeah.
We also had a learning curve where I think these guys have, when you take a parent call, you kind of, you answer the phone and you let them kind of just drop out as much information and you check the boxes on your parent referral sheet the best you can, and when they're done talking, you ask the remaining questions. You can do that this way for this call, but if you let them go on and there's all these components and there's all these emotions and there's all these other things, you could be on the phone for an hour listening to them. So we kind of had to change our strategy a little bit on how you answer the phone and try to take control of the call a little bit more. You don't just sit and listen. You kind of, start by asking, let's get your name and number in case something happens, we disconnected. I want to be able to call you back, and then trying to ask point blank questions for them, because some people will tell you their life story because it's all families wrapped up into all these stories, and literally you could be on the phone listening for an hour and you've not said anything. So when if you guys start getting some of these calls, you might want to talk about it with your regional director about where you guys are comfortable in switching your approach with these type of calls. I mean, from the complaint side, it makes it easier because now we have specific calls, so it's easier for us to direct how the calls go. I think as a parent referral specialist trying to answer the questions, maybe you even as a group are going to have to work out some of these, how do we keep the calls moving and how do we get to the point without a bunch of, family drama that really doesn't come to the questions that they're asking.
Yeah.
Melissa, I'm curious, are there times the parents won't give you a name and a number?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And have you had any discussion then about then it's time to end the phone call, or probably not yet?
Oh, so you're saying, so somebody calls you and they won't provide like their contact information for you to give them a call back type of thing?
I'm just curious, have you had that conversation at all, Cassie or Melissa?
Well, from the complaint hotline, we can take anonymous complaints, so we allow that.
Okay.
Yes. So they can say, I'm calling about ABC provider because, I think they're over numbers and I don't want to leave my name and number. That's allowed for us, so yeah, we let them do that. And I think from the parent side, you're just going to you should be answering questions.
Yeah, I guess you just have to be honest and say, I need to get back to you. I don't know the answer to this. And if they don't give you their contact information, then just say, I can't get back to you then with the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That or else they're going to have to call back at a certain time to get the answer.
Yeah. Or that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if you have multiple people answering the phone like we do in Region 1, then you just have to make sure that everybody has that answer in case that person calls back on a different day and time.
Yeah. If they have questions about, can I file a complaint anonymously? Yeah, they can definitely do so. I always give the spiel of the only reason we take down your contact information is just in case DHS wants additional information. They may or may not contact you. Otherwise, their information does remain confidential on those complaints filed. They always like to hear they're not going to appear on any public reports, anything like that. Their name isn't going to come out. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a lot of situations, it's pretty obvious. We get a lot of people that are concerned about programs finding out that they file a complaint against them.
We even take complaints when we don't know who they're complaining against.
Yeah, the actual name of the provider. Could have happened.
No.
Yeah.
If they can tell us, it's that yellow house on the corner of First Street in Maine.
I think the name is this. I've gotten one. She's married to so-and-so, so I put that in there. Because we all know who so-and-so is. Okay. I just realized I didn't share my screen. So,
The whole time you weren't sharing your screen?
yeah, the whole time I wasn't sharing my screen. So I had a pretty presentation. I'll send it out to all you ladies. This is what it looks like.
Oh,
You're funny.
Cassie.
I know.
We
You got
took
my
really
question,
good notes.
It's really cute. It had cute pictures and everything. I'll send it out because it kind of walks you through everything. So, I know.
Do you have like an intake form that you've made to gather the basic information? Or do you just write their name and number on a sticky note? You have to call them back.
Yeah.
Well, we
We
have
do.
a form for the complaint line, so the questions
go
that
through
are for the complaint line. But that's maybe something that you guys as a parent team could come up with a form for just the general questions you get.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd probably just be pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah, because our form has more all the questions in the format that we have to enter it back into the DHS database system.
Oh,
So.
okay.
Yeah.
I know Carol has started on one, Melissa, just because I thought we would probably need to be able to track that. So maybe and it was very general. So maybe once we know that the phone line is live or ready to go, we'll share that with the regions. So it's just a starting point. It certainly could use refinement as we go.
All right, thank you.
So, I guess I should ask this before. So, if they don't know the answer, they can't find people that know the answer. Are they supposed to go to Ryan?
No, they would come back to us, and we'll take it back to Ryan.
Okay.
Like if you made a question.
Yeah, so I just asked if parent specialist doesn't know an answer, they talk to coworkers, everybody else, they don't know the answer, then that's that process where you would email Melissa, CC, Deb.
And then we take it to Ryan, and she answers our questions. It'll come back to me, and I'll send it out to all of you guys so that we all get the same answer for whatever they find. Do we have a list of the answers we've already received? Is that in the I thought we were tracking that at some point.
We have it in I put a couple of them when we first started.
We have all. We'll look for our documentation that we've already received of questions we've got answers from. I kind of forgot about that till just now, because we don't really, when we were learning the first couple months, we would run across these answers, but we kind of now settled into the call entry, so we haven't referred to it lately. But that's probably definitely helpful for you guys from a starting point. So we'll forward those questions and the answers that we already received from Ryan through that process.
Melissa, do you have any concept of quantity of calls? Probably not with the change.
We're not sure with the change, and the numbers just keep growing. Cassie just looked at the numbers. We're not even done with the month, and we're at 155 calls this month.
Oh my gosh.
And last month was 123 for the total month. So every month we're growing 50 to 70 calls.
Wow.
We're growing smaller, but there was a big chunk this last couple of months.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of them, half of them are child care assistance calls.
Yeah, there really aren't, complaint or even question ones. It's a lot of, they literally just need that child care assistance line, and we're trying to investigate why they are calling this line, where they're getting that number from. We think it's something on the DHS webpage where it only lists the complaint line under the child care screen.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's literally been like half of them lately.
Yeah, so between putting, we're really hoping that screen will really limit them. And then, so when you really think about the complaint calls, and then now instead of us answering all of them, and you divide it by the 5 regions, you really probably could only get a couple a month, we think.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be crazy. Each and every, it's not just one part of the state that you get calls from, it's all over the place, so.
Okay.
It's not like we get, yeah, more complaints on the south counties.
Okay.
I was interested in that at first because I thought maybe there would be a trend, but there isn't.
I thought there'd be more of a trend like, from the
Bigger,
larger city areas, but it's truly not that.
No.
It's all over the state. And
Little itty bitty towns from, yep.
Some of the same callers, though, calling back and complaining.
Yeah. It seems like the itty bitty towns, there's a lot of non-registered complaints. I think the one registered provider is irritated with the non-registered that have so many.
I will say we recently had a non-registered complaint filed, and it went to the county attorney. DHS checked on it. It went to the county attorney, and the county attorney acted on it and closed him down.
Oh my.
Okay.
It was good to see.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. So their process is working, and their automatics where systems that they're putting in place, I think is starting to finally pay off. And I think now this complaint hotline, that all complaints come into this number and get uploaded, and there's, supervisors look at it, and there's a follow-up process, and there's standardized letters that go to things like the county attorneys and things like that, that I think it's starting to all play out.
Yeah, and callers seem to appreciate when you kind of walk them through how to get to that complaint file, those compliance and complaint files online on the DHS webpage. I do that quite a bit, in walking a caller to finding that information, and that it's available to them.
Okay, you do it right when you're on the phone with them, huh, Cassie?
Yeah. And I give them the DHS webpage. They click under "Can we help?"
Good point.
Child care. Kind of help them because it's a few clicks.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, it's not easy to get there.
Right.
So are you walking them through by going through our website first, or are you going to the DHS website first?
I just go right to the DHS webpage. Is there a link in our web?
Well, there's on our site too.
Like a direct link to the compliance and complaint report?
I don't know if it's a direct link.
I don't know if it's a direct link, Cassie. I was just wondering the method. I was just...
Yeah. That's actually maybe a good idea, though, to weave them through.
Well, I forgot we're supposed to keep it separate, so I'm sorry.
You guys are fine.
You guys can use the CCR&R one, but as the complaint hotline, we probably should use the DHS version.
Yeah, I'm using my consultant brain when I'm thinking like that. I always direct them through our website first, just to demonstrate, hey, we have all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think as a service representative, it would be great to use the CCR&R way too, to introduce them to that piece too. And again, what I like about this is that we have a new way to reach parents in a whole different way, in that parent education. Really, we can do so much good with parent education through these calls.
Yeah.
And as you're talking about sharing with them the rules and the comms, if they're able to access our website at the same time, and you could walk them through, well, here's the rules for a child care home receiving child care assistance. Here's more about that type of home.
So would we then track that input that information onto NACAWare if we do consultation or technical assistance for a parent?
No, I don't think so at this time. I guess I don't, well, maybe Deb, you want to tackle that, but I don't think there's a system in place, and there's no expectations at this point. And the consultations that would run through here will not be reflected as part of the complaint hotline information either.
I'm thinking about that. I guess part of me is saying it's cool to capture the consumer ed that we would be doing.
Well, it would be reported nationally then too, if we put on NACAWare.
Melissa, now you got me really thinking.
That's why you're the parent liaison. I'm just going to sit back and
That's why
yeah, because
You stepped down at a good time, Melissa.
yeah, that's why you're my colleague. Don't think you're getting out of that one so fast. Yeah, I think we kind of got to pause and think about that one. So, yeah, you're right. Currently, we're not set up to do that, but if we wanted to show the consumer ed that we were doing, so okay, good question.
like all the calls that come in through the complaint line, we have a simple Excel sheet that we've been tracking just so we can know the quantity and what they are, like 3 broad categories of what they fall under, so we can kind of track it.
But even what truly is reported by DHS to the feds is what gets uploaded.
Yeah.
What we're tracking in our Excel document is just a quick thing to say, okay,
Breakdown.
yeah, this is the Excel document gives us all the extra calls that were taken that are not reflected, like all those CCA calls and things like that. And we have a way of sorting it, so DHS has some better background. So really it's more a reflection of how to better pay us, basically, or for the time, because their mechanism doesn't track it appropriately.
Well, definitely, it would validate the position. That's where I'm going for, is, validate the time spent. So, but definitely if we start out with a general Excel spreadsheet, that would allow us to show that to, Mickey and Ryan and Wendy and say, this is what's happened in the past year or whatever the case may be.
If you don't have, if everybody doesn't have caller ID, and how are you going to know, and they're doing the direct link from the ART number to press number 3 to go to CCR&R, as a parent service specialist, you're not going to have any way to track how you're getting these calls versus anything else you get.
Right.
So it's going to be, what you're going to be tracking then is just consumer ed in general, but there's going to be no way you're going to really be able to 100% say this came from a referral from,
unless you start asking how you got our number.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We already asked how they heard about us on the referrals.
That's true.
So maybe the referral,
But sometimes it's not you might not be giving them a referral.
well, honestly, that's a good question. And so what does your hello, you've reached Melissa Jewell with Child Care Resource.
This is Cassie.
Yeah, so how are you going to decipher that they don't need a parent, are you going to assume they need a parent referral? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't answer the phone.
I guess I just always answer Child Care Resource and Referral. This is Cassie, and then it's usually pretty obvious. They usually say right away, a listing of child care providers, or they'll say, I just have a question, or I'm a provider.
Yeah.
That's what I was envisioning, is that you would just answer the same and you would let the content of the call determine where you would record that and where you would document that.
There's times I get calls like that now, and I put them on NACRAware under the unidentified caller file.
Yeah.
We do capture those as consumer ed.
Any other questions?
Not at the moment. I'm sure as soon as we say goodbye.
All kinds of them.
That's what we said. I'm guessing more questions might come in as it actually starts.
Right.
Sure.
Implemented.
Right. Well, thank you for your time today, ladies. So I'm
sorry for the screen sharing debacle. I'll email the actual presentation so you can see it.
Well, we'd hate for you to go through all that work and not let it be shown to everyone.
It's only like 10 slides, but still, some cute
Yeah.
pictures in there. Yeah. Good bullet points too. So I'll email that out. And then again, we did record this too. So I don't know if how we're gonna send that out, or we have it available type of thing.
Yeah, we were just thinking to have it recorded if anybody has, new staff, or you ever, add other people to answer the phone, in your absences, things like that, that it would be a training tool for new parent service people.
Okay.
Seems like we have a ton of training stuff for consultants. We better build some things up for parent staff too.
Yes.
Okey-doke.
Well, thanks for your time, ladies.
Thank you.